So just on that, anytime you do feel like your leg is getting pinned, you should be curling it towards it, catching your shin and trying to turn it into the plane where you can chop back here. Okay, so not having you don't want it so your knee's getting like pushed down, like kind of pinned like this is really bad. Anytime I feel my leg getting pinned, capture, bring your hips up and out so that you can actually get in this plane. When we're facing towards our opponent, but they've cleared our ability to just pummel our legs. So we've got to the point where the person started to come around the legs and you don't see a clear way to just get the feet back in front with any of the crossovers or actions we've talked about. And there's going to be two main like spins to recover. So most of the time here, especially when our bottom leg can't come back in, we end up swinging it around. We use these invert type motions to come back to get our legs in front. But there'll also be a section just when that gets a little worse and they've actually started to close the gap in around here or into something like a Neon Valley. We'll cover when they've got in front of our legs and start to close the gap too. When our opponents cleared our legs and they're starting to get around, so I see my ability to immediately pummel might be gone. Like, what's my initial strategy and posture I want to take? Now, we're saying facing in, like we're calling this like when you're facing your opponent, but you don't want to actually turn all the way on your side. So when Ari starts to get around here, I don't want to turn like this. Look, he's now pinned my leg down, and I'm gonna have a real hard time getting that leg back. Okay, so we're saying facing in, but it's actually a little bit more facing the roof. And that makes it a little harder to pin that leg. A lot of it's actually about not letting this leg get pinned and not letting it get cleared. So you don't want this leg just dangling out here. Anytime I dangle the leg out, it's easy to pin, and then you can get past that, and my knee starts to open from my chest. Okay, that's not what I want. Okay, we have an option when they do pin it, which is to invert. We'll cover that, but that's not the ideal scenario. What I want is to support my leg with my hand so it can't get pinned, and have it more coming up in a bit more of a vertical plane, like this. So I've closed off, if you see here with my foot coming up and my knee being close to my chest, there's no avenue for Ari. If he tries to pass in, like I stay on the side, just try and come forward. He's just coming back into my guard if he tries to go here. It really forces him to keep running around and not work on this plane. Whereas if my leg gets pinned or cleared, he can actually come in on this angle. Okay, so a big mistake I used to make was to chase my opponent with this leg. They started to get around. I used to try to like reach for their arm, reach for their leg with my leg, and I actually allow him now to pin and clear it. Okay. Don't do that. Focus more on the positioning of your leg and your body as he starts to go around. I'm bringing my legs up. Okay. And this can now, I could potentially pummel in this plane, and that's fine. Okay. But if he's back and away from that, that's fine. We've got some options here. We're going to cover the turtle shell spin, which lets us spin back, and also what we do if that doesn't work and we get pinned, and that's where we use the invert. So just on that, anytime you do feel like your leg is getting pinned, you should be curling it towards it, catching your shin and trying to turn it into the plane where you can chop back here. Okay, so not having you don't want it so your knee's getting like pushed down, like kind of pinned like this is really bad. Anytime I feel my leg getting pinned, capture, bring your hips up and out so that you can actually get in this plane.
Another reason we put our leg high is it actually makes it very hard for our opponent to turn us away. If we have our near leg coming up nice and high, what happens is my leg ends up past the center of rotation, which would be here. So when Michael tries to turn my hips towards the camera, if I push against that with my leg, it's actually going to spin my hips towards him due to me rotating around this axis. So if he pushes away like this and I push against it, you see that spins me back with my legs back in front of him. Whereas with my legs low, as you'll see here, where he's pushing, if the center of rotation here, he's now pushing below that and pushing towards the camera again. If I push against that now, for example, against him here, you'll see that spins my head towards him and my legs away, which actually potentially exposes an ability to be passed. Okay, obviously we have a counters if our leg does get put here, but by preference, we're wanting to put our leg high, and therefore when they try to turn us away, we can push back to square ourselves back up, as opposed to low, whereas if we push back against our opponent, it turns us more towards north-south. Here you'll see a great example where I'm going to, with my right hand here, try to pin Ari's leg as I walk around, and you see he won't allow me to. So I'm trying to push that down to the ground. He's already curling through, and that space to come in is gone. And you see it gets to the point where he's inverted up. So, or like he's facing me, and there's no way I can pin that leg to the ground and actually get in position to do that. Another example of me doing the same thing. So you see Ari starting to move out to the side. He's going to want to pin this leg down. You can see because I'm holding my knee, which is okay at not letting my knee get pulled out, but you can see my foot could be vulnerable to being pinned. So as Ari starts to push that down, I will actually change my grip to my calf to prevent. You can see if I actually grip the shin, that stops my foot getting pinned and not my knee getting twisted in like that. Okay, and then as I do that, there's no space to pass inwards here, and that lets me spin all the way through and recover.